All right, welcome in. It is another edition of the On the Mic podcast, and it's been a while since we talked to this man. He'll make his return to the octagon after a little bit of a layoff. He is one of the most underrated fighters in his division in the UFC, and although things didn't go his way his last fight, he's looking to bounce back in a big way against Ion Cutelaba. He's the one and only Devin Clark. Sir, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good, man. And, anyone who follows the show knows that you and I have had some real talks, some life talks, some real world talks. And, man, it's never about disrespect. I saw a beautiful piece written on you on UFC.com this week, and they kind of mentioned a mulligan, man. And, there's one thing. I remember talking to you before the Anthony Smtih fight. I remember talking to your team before the Anthony Smtih fight. The way that everything that you were going through was held behind closed doors, not spoken about. I just want to say, just as someone who's talked to you so many times, props to you on not only going through with the fight, but having a great team around you that held that all in. But what was that like for you? Obviously, condolences for the loss, but to have that adversity thrown at you right before the fight, what was that like?
It was super tough, and I ended up having me and the family had to make the decision to obviously keep the fight and still fight. And it's one of those deals where you try to push through, and obviously I did. I made it to the fight, and I got it, actually fought, but my mental space just was not clear for that fight, and it's pretty obvious why. And going and thinking about this camp that I've had now in that camp, it's just two totally different atmospheres. Atmosphere of this camp was pretty stress-free. I mean, obviously every camp's a little bit stressful just with all the training and stuff like that, but it was like a weight off my shoulders. I didn't have to worry about my family at home, going through a tough time or anything like that. So, so it's super relieving to just be able to focus on the fight.
Oh, absolutely. And obviously, I don't want to sound like I was asking a dumb question. What was it like going through all that? But I think more of what was it like to make that decision? Obviously, family comes first. I think throughout the years, not only with you, but anyone who's followed this show knows, I've always focused on, the fighter, the person, not the fighter inside the cage and not technique. And, I've heard crazy stories. I've heard some real life things, from fighters, and to have to make that decision, not just with yourself, but with your family. What was that like for you?
Yeah. Hard. And I'm still not sure it was the best decision. That's something that I'll always have to live with. Knowing that I'm there at the time. My mother-in-law's, last moments and everything like that. And, that's the time that we'll remember that I wasn't there. We're definitely at peace for sure, nobody's blaming or anything like that. But it's super difficult. I definitely should have been there. But it's this crazy fight game, man. And then you get somebody that's a fighter, that's in your family, or like I said, I think before, the whole family was there. We were all in, like you got to fight. Especially since it's, that was one of those fights that could have affected my future for years to come. Definitely a great experience. The win, but the possibility of the victory was so huge and would have done a lot for my career. And unfortunately we didn't get that victory, but I still learned a lot from the whole situation. With being gone and through stuff like that, and where I process things differently, and how.
Oh, looks like we lost Devin Clark here. Little connection issues, but we are back here, folks, with Devin Clark. And Devin, you were just kind of talking about the decision to make that you made, just making it with your family. You talked about how tough it was, and I don't want to harp on this. That's not why we're talking. So I actually want to move forward. I actually just gonna flat out come out and ask you. If you look, when you first joined the call and I introduced you, I said you're one of the most underrated fighters in the UFC and in your division. Look at your resume. Yeah, I know you went win-loss alternate for a little while. Those L's, I mean, not to bring up losses, but they're against the top of the division. Like, you can't be slept on. You just can't do it. So I'm just going to ask you straight up. Do you want to work your way back up to an Anthony Smith fight?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And beyond for sure. I know I'm one of the best in the division, and in all those fights that I lost, it was simple mistakes and just me not being as mature as a fighter. And obviously that Anthony Smith one, it was super situational, and it really, like I said, my headspace just wasn't there. It wasn't in the fighting. I just didn't have my fighting spirit like usual, and wasn't having fun. And I was talking to John Jones last week, and he reminded me, Devin, just have fun in there. And I go back to some of the fights that I was having fun, even some of the losses, like Alexander Rakic. I had a lot of fun in that fight until I got knocked out. But in that process, I almost finished him, and he was asleep for a second until one of my other knees woke him up. So it's like just going back to having fun, climbing the ranks again, and also involved in having fun is just having that little bit of a mean streak to me. And I'm super thankful for this fight. And there's a reason why we actually asked for this fight to continue to rebook this fight after he had already fought. We were supposed to fight in May, and I got COVID, so the fight was canceled. And he ended up fighting another guy, went to a draw, and I asked for the fight after I was healthy, because Cutelaba is one of those guys where I don't have to like him. He's such a D-bag in the stuff that he does and the pre-fight antics, and he's just kind of a bully, and I really hate bullies. So it allows me to be a bully to him. I don't like bullies, but I don't mind bullying bullies or people that think that they have to intimidate somebody or whatever. And I know it's just his own self-esteem. He's a weak little man, scared little man, and that's why he has to do this stuff to get in his opponent's head, and it helps his confidence. It reeks of insecurity.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, you kind of took my next question right from me, but like, this is the perfect opponent, right? Like, Ion Cutelaba is a guy that after everything you've gone through with your family, and then having COVID and waiting so long to get back into the cage, get back into the octagon, you've got a guy where you're like, oh, I'm going to go back to having fun again. And now, as you just said, like, oh shit, I get to bully a bully. Like, this is the perfect moment for you, I would think.
Yeah, definitely. It's a fun situation. And I like it. I like going into that situation where you don't know what he's going to do, what kind of antics he's going to pull at the weigh-ins or even in the fight. But it allows me to play that game too. And the only reason I don't play that game is morally. So I used to be like that. I used to scream a lot and kind of think that I had to intimidate guys and all that when I was coming up. But then I realized you just didn't really have to do that. We're going to fight either way. So but morally, it's like, especially in the UFC, this is a business. We're fighting the next day. We're getting paid good money. No reason to escalate things, sooner. And it'd be false if I tried to do that with a lot of these guys. I had a few guys when I was coming up the ranks that would talk shit before the fight, and I take it personally. And Cutelaba, he's not talking that much shit or nothing like that, but it's just his personality. I know the way he's treated people in the past, and so it's morally, it's all right for me to disrespect him.
I was gonna say, is this something? Obviously, you look at an opponent as a fighter, and sometimes you come across an opponent who tries. You have to kind of game plan for the person as well as the fighter. I think the biggest name in your sport right now, Conor McGregor, is a prime example of that. Yeah. You want to focus on Conor the fighter, but you got to be prepared for Conor the person and anything he might say, anything he might try. Is that something you and your team talked about? Like, hey, listen, like, we're getting back in here. Don't feed into the antics and anything like that. Have you guys kind of had any talks about him?
Not really, but not officially, I suppose. Like,
right.
Talk about it here and there. We know what he wants to do, and I'm not going to get into too much detail because it's there's a little strategy here.
Oh, for sure, obviously. I don't ask for strategy. I never do.
I drive here from Albuquerque. I drive to Vegas from Albuquerque, and it's an 8-hour drive. And I was actually I like to do Audible books, and I was doing one. I was reading what's it called? It's about, I think his name's Jim Patton, the general, war general, really good war general, and it's No Better Friend, No Worse Enemy is the name of the book, and it's all about war strategy and stuff like that, and talks about his career and his life. And but I picked up a few tips and tricks on how to combat the enemy and how to trick him and some of his own games and stuff like that. So in the book, he's actually talking about Saddam Hussein. So Cutelaba is going to be my Hussein. We're going to fuck him up because that's what happened. So he died.
This is this is must see TV, and it's not even shit talking. It's just you're letting it be known, And I think really you talked about a little, and I don't mean any disrespect toward Cutelaba, but you talked about this not only being the perfect opponent, but wanting to get an Anthony Smith fight and beyond back. And I've talked about you being underrated, and with all of that, if you mix all that together, are we gonna see like a mean Devin Clark in this fight?
It's pretty possible, yes. Yeah, because I can be mean. I keep it hidden pretty damn well. I can be the biggest dick in the world. I choose not to, and morally, I can't. When it comes to most people, if you respect me, it's like impossible for me not to show you respect as well. But when I see you disrespecting other people, and you're probably going to try to disrespect me, so F you. Let's go. I can get gritty too. And you don't want to see that, but now he's got to see that. So.
Well, I can't wait to watch it. I got to ask, let's take out Devin Clark. Let's take out Cutelaba. It's just fighter A, fighter B. So I'm not asking game plans and strategies, but we kind of talked about how he can be wild. So when you as a fighter have an opponent who is wild inside the octagon, does that obviously it changes a little bit of how you're preparing and how you're going to move forward? But what is the number one thing a fighter needs to keep in mind when you have somebody who is wild in exchanges, in his grappling, and just tries to home run or nothing, basically?
Well, you see in a lot of fights, anybody that's going for big punches like that, big winging punches, they're open somewhere. There's an open shot there somewhere. So if you're going for the knockout, you're leaving yourself vulnerable as well. So that's pretty much that without too much. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like that can be dealt with. I've dealt with that in the past. I broke my face in the Alonzo Menifield fight and walked through it. So I know what I'm capable of. I don't, but he doesn't. He's ignorant in that fact where he'll choose to ignore that and think that he can just knock me out. Which, let's go. He's a pretty decent wrestler too. He's got a wrestling background and stuff like that. So that'll be interesting as well with my wrestling background. So it's he's got more knockouts for sure. He's a better power puncher, stuff like that. But when you put me in that situation, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, I think the fight fans remember your fight against Alonzo Menifield. Like you said, you walked right through those shots. And so I don't think taking a power punch should be something people are sleeping on you. I've kind of already asked this, but given how it almost seemed like you were just so overlooked after the Anthony Smith fight, and understandably you were going through a lot on a personal level, is this fight against Cutelaba kind of a resending of a message to the division and to fight fans like, hey, look, no fighter wants to take a step back, but maybe that was a good thing for me. And now I'm just going to run through the division like I had planned to.
I hope so. I hope it is. I don't like to put too many extras on things and say
right.
This is going to be this and this is going to be that. But it's definitely a good opportunity for that to reset. It's a good opponent. He's got a little bit of a name. So because he painted himself green, that's the only reason. Because he's an idiot. But but yeah, it definitely could lead to a lot of possibilities, and hopefully, I know I'll beat him. Definitely a ranked fight. I don't know if it'll be Anthony Smith or any of my other opponents that I want to rematch.
Yeah, it should be a good, should set me in a good place.
Now, two opponents you've had in the past will be facing off: Anthony Smith, Ryan Spann. Are you keeping an eye on that fight?
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably watch it, but it's, that's their fight. And I know them. I know what they're capable of. So it's nothing new to really watch out for,
Right.
And I doubt that I'll get the winner of that fight. We'll see. I got to win my fight first, and then we'll see from there. Because I know they're both ahead of me in the rankings, and they'll probably be looking to move up after beating one another. So
I think all fight fans want to know: will your dad be in your corner for this fight?
He will.
Yep. Can't wait. Literally the best part of any Devin Clark fight outside of your fight is your dad in the corner. And we touched on it in the past. And, obviously it was a big deal when he came into the spotlight. But what is that like, especially given everything that had happened with your family in the last fight, to have that camaraderie, to have everything that your dad means to you, to just get back in there, have fun again, and he's in your corner?
It's great. It's always a great feeling to have my dad in my corner. We might not always get along. It's the father-son deal. He tells me to do something, I just genuinely want to do the opposite. But even though knowing that he's right, and he knows he's right and will never be wrong. So, but it's like, and like, damn, he is right. So, definitely learned to listen to him, and I've taken a lot away from him, obviously. Or from what he has to say, and just his whole attitude. If I could have his attitude, I'd probably be world champion right now. Just his mean streak and his ability to say, fuck everybody, I'm going to tear this bitch up. I got a little bit soft, I got a lot of my mentality from my mom, I think. She's a soft-spoken person, always thinks before she talks, never gets over the top with anything. Completely opposite of my dad, over the top every time, and he'll promise you that he'll be over the top every fucking time. But it's that's a mentality that's important in being a fighter, though, is having that mean streak and being able to say, all right, we can be nice or whatever, but if you fuck with me, I'm gonna kill you. Like that mentality, and he definitely shows up with that mentality every time, even though he's not fighting, he's ready to go. So especially me being able to deal with guys like Ion Cutelaba. I grew up with my dad yelling in my face like Ian wants to, like, you can't intimidate me when I grew up with that. In my eyes, my dad's a badass dude, and he'll fight anybody till this day. He doesn't care. So yeah, it's good having him in the corner and having that energy, and I believe that all my opponents see that energy too, and it might get in their head a little bit because he's a big guy and he's got a loud voice.
Yes, he does. We all know that. But I think you just paid him a massive compliment, saying, if you had his mindset and mentality, probably be world champion right now. I will just say, as someone who has talked to you for a very long time, it sounds like that mentality's rubbing off a little, at least coming into this fight. So I'm not going to predict anything, but I'm just going to tell fight fans to tune into that fight. I don't want to take too much more time, Devin, but you mentioned John Jones in a conversation you guys had, and it seems like I'm always asking about John whenever I talk to you, but away from John, why don't you just talk about the room you're in with guys like Davion Franklin, John Jones, and now Christian Edwards as well. Throw you four in a room. I don't know who's beating you for on any given day. Like, I would not want to be in that room. I would stand outside the gym and just watch from the windows. What is it like having those guys and all your teammates? No disrespect to anyone I forgot, but to have a core four really of you four just thriving right now. What is it like for you to have that room?
It's a super cool combination of fighters and coaches. We also have a lot of good coaches in the room, world-class coaches. Yeah, Mike Winklejohn, Greg Jackson, Joy Villasenor, Alex, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. He changed it to a Thai name, but he's one of John's coaches as well. And we have all these other coaches that are just in and out and helping the amateurs and stuff like that. and you can literally learn something from everybody in the room, no matter what level or rank they're at. Everybody's there to get better and help each other. There's not a whole lot of animosity or nothing like that in the room. And nobody's usually we're not trying to kill each other. Sometimes it might get a little, little rough, but it's just such a good atmosphere, and you have so much talent in there, and it's like you almost sometimes you wish you could just look 5-10 years in the future and see who's world champion, because you can pick them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you have that. Like there's so many guys that have the it factor to be world champion. It's just about putting it all together.
Yeah, and I think you are well on your way. I think it's right there for you for the taking. But I also want to pay a compliment to your entire team and some of the guys, and yourself included, that I just mentioned. It seems like fighters from Jackson Wink are cut from a different cloth. Now, every fighter goes through something, but if you look at the names, if you look at the stories, each and every one of you have gone through adversity in real life that most regular day-to-day humans wouldn't be able to handle. When you mention a conversation with John Jones and he tells you to just go back in there and have fun again, what is it about what you all have been through as individuals that brings you together as a team that helps make you guys all better fighters?
I think it's just that understanding of knowing that there's usually something worse going on than what you're about to go through in a fight. The fight might be minimal, even though a lot of people would say, damn, that's the scariest thing in the world, to go into a fight against another man or woman that wants to rip your head off. And then it is nerve wracking, but then when you remember all of the stuff that you have been through, that's way more serious than a fight or some bruises or black eye, broken face, whatever, broken bones, all that shit heals. It's the emotional stuff and the heartbreaks and the agony that we grew up with at times. That is just a lot more than that, and having other guys that can understand that as well, and then putting that to a common purpose, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, you've got a great team down there, and I don't want to speak for you, Devin, but I know in the immediate after everything happened with your family leading up to the Anthony Smith fight, I know things didn't go your way, but I think what's exciting for me, just person to person, knowing you as long as I have, I'm excited that all your performances from here on out can be in her memory. And hearing you tonight, like, man, it just seems like this is going to be must-see TV. What message do you send to the top 15 in your division with this fight against Cutelaba on Saturday night?
Just how dominant I can be, and maybe they say, hey, shit, Devin's figured it out. Because you've watched all my fights and like, oh, well, he just made a simple mistake, and he could have won that fight. And I know it. It's just a little bit of preparation and trying to figure everything out, and trying to figure out my body and my fears and the timidness and stuff like that. It's just trying to figure it all out. But I think this is my 12th fight in the UFC, and I think we're getting there. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I go out there and get my ass kicked, but we don't train to lose, so we're always training to get better. And I believe that I'm going to get there. And once I do figure it out, hopefully it is this fight. Maybe it's the next fight, win or lose. I'm world champion material.
Yeah, I think it's right there for you. And I think hearing you talk about it is obviously it's amazing. With this fight, obviously it's your first fight of this year. It all goes according to plan. Do you want to get back in there at the end of this year?
I'm not opposed to it. I do usually like to take a little time after my fights, spend with my family. But since it has been a slow year, if I finish this fight quick or walk away with no real injuries or anything like that, I'm not going to say no to a fight. Got to make that money, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Devin, you sound great. You look great. I'm obviously thrilled to have the opportunity to talk to you every single time. And I'm thankful that you're always so open with me about everything. I take away something from our conversation every single time. So props to you, man, for even moving forward. Like I said, going into that Anthony Smith fight, I know you and your team pretty close, and like to not even have an idea of what you were going through, it really took me for a shock when I learned of the news. So again, my condolences to your family, but you sound great, and fight fans. He said he's gonna bully a bully. So when you like, you know, when Kevin Garnett said it best, like 11 or 12-year-old me heard Kevin Garnett when he won his first NBA Finals and said, "I just knocked the bully's ass out." Like I was like, yup. I was like, you know what? I think I like people who beat up bullies. So I can't wait for this fight. Must see TV. Devin Clark, Ion Cutelaba. Devin, thank you so much for the time, and hope to talk after your fight.
Thank you. Appreciate it.